Hi, my name is Susan Mingle. I'm a clinical nurse educator for Med1 Group, and I'm here today to do a training session on the Alaris Point of Care Unit and the large volume pump module that your hospital recently acquired. I'd like to start out with an overview of the Alaris Point of Care Unit, PCU. Sometimes nurses will refer to this as the brain because without this, nothing else works. So I'd like to start out with an overview of the Alaris Point of Care Unit. If you'll notice, there's a very large screen, and it's actually in color. And surrounding the screen are what we call arrow keys, and they're going to correspond with a prompt that you'll be using as you program the device. And if you'll notice, the orange button is for silence. Just below that is options, because the PCU will have some options that we'll show you a little bit later. And then your system on key. Notice below there's a numeric keypad, and then this round one that's highlighted in red is your decimal. And on the sides of the PCU, you'll notice what we call IUI connectors. These are where the modules attach and reattach up to 4, depending on what the needs are in your hospital. And then located on the back is the power cord. And again, one power cord will program up to 4 different modules. And you'll notice there's a black button on the back, and if you press this in and hold, this will lock out the panel so that patient family members will not be able to program the pump while you're not in the room. This PCU has an embedded wireless ABG-N card, so if your hospital currently has the Alaris server, this is how the devices will connect to the server. And below for Biomed is where the battery will pop out, making a change an easy fix. Just pop it out and pop it back in. As previously mentioned, these are the IUI connectors that reside on either side of the PCU, and this is where the Alaris modules will attach and reattach to either side of the brain for use. So now I'm going to demonstrate attaching the Alaris large volume pump module to the point of care unit. And what you want to do is make sure that the groove on the side of the large volume pump connects with the IUI connector. This is what gives the connectivity for the pump and the brain to work. So I'm going to cock it at a 45-degree angle, and then when you have it in place, you want to hear a click so that you know you have connectivity achieved. So just a brief overview of the large volume pump modules. Just like all the other modules that the Alaris system has, you have the same buttons. You'll press channel select to activate the module. You have a pause button, you have a channel off button, and then you have a restart button. The large volume pump module actually has a door that opens. And you'll notice the inside here, this is where we will load our tubing, and we will show you how to prime and load the tubing next. So I want to talk about disposables for just a second before we get started on priming and loading the device. This is a proprietary set, so you do have to use Alaris disposables when you are using the large volume pump module. There's a catalog of all types of disposables that we can do a cross-reference at your hospital. I'm using for this demonstration a typical 2-port set. They come packaged like this. And you take it out of the package, you're going to notice right off the bat that there is this blue piece here. This is merely here to protect what we call our silastic pumping segment during shipping. So you basically will want to just remove that before you load it into the pump. This set, like I said, again, has a port for piggybacks for your secondary, and then a port way down at the bottom for any of your IV insertion pushes that are next to the IV site right there. So now we're going to actually prime, and then we're going to load the tubing and get started on an infusion. So I've already spiked the bag for this next scenario, and we're going to move to an instructor-led scenario where I have a nurse that's going to be doing the programming, the priming, the loading, and all the steps for the infusion module. So let's get started now. Since I've already primed it, we're going to go ahead and simulate how you would finish priming the tubings. Okay, so our bag is spiked. The first thing the nurse is going to do is squeeze the drip chamber until it's about 2/3 full. Next thing the nurse will do is slowly open the roller clamp. What this does, it ensures that the turbidity and turbulence is at a minimum while priming so that you don't cause air to build up in the line. You want to tip the ports and tap them to knock the air out, because that can cause air in line. And then you want to continue slowly opening your roller clamp so that the tubing will prime all the way to the end. And then you tap the last port, because this is a 2-port set. You would tap the last port as the fluid gets to there to knock the air out of that. And then you don't have to worry about taking the cap off at the end because the end cap is vented, meaning that you can keep everything sterile until you're ready to attach it to the patient. So you'll close the roller clamp, and now we're ready to demonstrate how you load the tubing in the Alaris Pump Module. So now we're ready to load the tubing in the Alaris Pump Module. So the clinician will open the door, take the tubing. We're looking at the top of what we call that silastic pump segment. You want to raise it above the module, drop it down in there so it sits right on top. Then you want to take that blue cartridge there and put it into the blue compartment. That's called the flow stop. Lastly, you want to thread your tubing into those blue like teeth, which is your air and line sensor. So that's a 1, 2, 3, top to middle to bottom. And then you can close the door. Now, when the nurse opens the door, you'll notice that blue compartment we call the flow stop. See that white tab has now ejected? That's a free flow protection should the door accidentally open during an infusion. It's just an additional safety feature. Additionally, if the clinician opens the door, and let's say the patient needs to go to surgery and does not need the pump, you will pull from the bottom, release the tubing, pull down on the blue lever, and push the white clamp back in. Now it's a gravity set. So this pump set can also be a pump set and a gravity set. So you don't have to have two different sets if the patient is going to the OR without the device. So now we're going to program an infusion. So the clinician will reach out and power on with the System On button, and it will go through a series of diagnostics so that we know connectivity has been made between the Alaris Large Volume Pump Module and the PCU. And the first clinical question the nurse is going to see is this a new patient? And they will choose the arrow key corresponding with yes, and then they will choose the profile appropriate for where they're working. For example, med-surg, critical care, labor and delivery, and your hospital will customize these care areas. So we're going to say no to the one it was last used in, and we're going to choose for this scenario the adult ICU. So we'll go ahead and choose adult ICU, and then if you'll notice the blue bar at the bottom, it will always tell you what to do next. So now we're going to press confirm. So the library of drugs for ICU have now come to the forefront, and we're just going to bypass the patient ID screen. Depending on if your hospital has used that or not, you will just press enter, confirm to move past that. So now the pump is just in a still mode, and if you'll notice again on the bottom, the blue prompt bar, it's saying to select a channel. So we have our tubing primed and loaded, so we're going to reach out on Module A and select the channel. And here's our infusion menu: Guardrails drugs, Guardrail IV fluids, or basic infusion. We're going to start with a Guardrail IV fluid. And again, this library is customizable based on what your pharmacy chooses to use. So we're going to start out with the normal saline, 0.9 normal saline. And then we're going to say, yes, that's what I've chosen. And then we're going to enter in our rate. Let's just say we're going to start with a rate of 50. And we're going to do a volume of, we have a bag size full of about 500. So let's underestimate and do about 450. We're going to open our roller clamp, and then we're going to press start. And so now, if you'll notice on the pump module, green is good. That means it's infusing. The rate is listed as 50, and then you have your 0.9 normal saline scrolling across the marquee. So now the doctor has ordered an antibiotic to be given for this patient. So we're going to show you how to set up the antibiotic and how to find that in the drug library. So we've gone ahead and primed our antibiotic, our secondary infusion. So we're going to utilize the hanger that came in the secondary bag, and we're going to lower our primary fluids. And we're going to keep our secondary fluids higher. And now we're going to channel select. And we're going to look at the keys underneath the screen and look for secondary. And that's going to take us to our secondary drug library. And we're going to use our shortcut keys A through E, but we don't need to in this scenario because we're looking for Ancef or cefazolin. We're going to choose that. And then we'll just choose the 1050. And again, this is all customized based on what your pharmacy gives and the concentrations that you use. And we're going to press yes, that's what I want. We're going to press next to confirm that concentration. And then we're going to do a duration because we always give ANSEF over 30 minutes. So we're going to type in 30. And we're going to read our prompt window, the blue bar that says verify your secondary roller clamp is open, then press start. But before we do that, we're going to make sure we connect our secondary tubing to our primary tubing at that port that we tipped and tapped, the one that's the first one we hit. So we're going to push and twist, open our roller clamp, and then we're going to press start. So now you still have the green light, but what's running now is the ANSEF, or the cefazolin, and it says secondary cefazolin at 100 mLs per hour. So I want to show you what happens when the secondary infusion is complete. So we're going to manipulate the numbers to make that happen pretty quickly. So we're going to press channel select, and we're going to change our volume to be infused to 0.1, just so we can simulate this happening really quick, and press start. So it automatically flips back over with a series of 6 beeps back to the primary rate that we originally programmed for our normal saline. So that's a secondary infusion. So I've switched over to what we call a cheater set. It's a set that's used for education, just to keep things cleaner and simpler. So now I'm going to show you a couple of features that you could utilize on the large volume pump module by selecting the channel select button. If you'll notice at the bottom left, delay options. This is a feature that you could delay an infusion. Let's say you're drawing a lab for heparin and you wanted to delay it until you got the results back. Then also the volume over time. If you press the volume over time, then you can see that you could program an amount in over a specific time if you wanted to use that feature. So just by repressing start, you just go back to the main screen, even though we did not interrupt the infusion to do that. Next, we're going to show you what an alarm might look like and how it troubleshoots very friendly. Let's say the door accidentally opens. You're going to hear the alarm, and it's also going to show a red light, meaning it's in the alarm mode. But notice scrolling across the marquee is instructions on how to resolve the alarm. In this instance, it says close the door. So the clinician will simply close the door, and it says to press restart. So go ahead and press the restart button, and now you've resolved that alarm. Same as if you had an occlusion on the patient's side, you forgot to open the roller clamp, it would also blink red. It would also scroll across the marquee that you have an occlusion on the patient's side. So it does troubleshoot very friendly on how to resolve the alarms that you may get. Next, we're going to talk about the KVO alert and what that might look like. We'll be simulating that next. So to simulate a KVO, we're going to have to manipulate the numbers a little bit. So let's channel select, hit our volume to be infused, and let's just go ahead and take it down to 0.1. And then press start. This way we can show you what the alarm, what the lights look like when you're in a KVO mode. And again, these rates of this are customizable by pharmacy, and in this instance, our KVO rate is 10, and it's still green because it's still infusing at 10, but it's also giving you that yellow heads up to say you need to go get your subsequent bag before you run it dry. So you could just press silence, and the silence will last for 2 minutes, so you can go back and get your next bag. And next we're going to show you how you can hang your next subsequent bag by using the restore feature. So now we have our subsequent bag, and it's another bag of normal saline at the same rate and the same volume. So you can utilize the restore feature. By doing this, you will channel select, and on the bottom left of the screen you should see a restore. If all the parameters are the same, then you will get the exact same entries that you put in the first time. So press restore. Now remember, we manipulated the volume, so it's restoring that 0.1, but we're going to go back and put in that original 450, which you would not have to do because it would come back up, and then press start. So that way it has a memory of 7 hours and 59 minutes for that restore feature if you're hanging subsequent bags. So that's really a nice time saver in terms of programming. So as you've noticed, we've added another module because we're going to show you how to program a Guardrails drug infusion. And notice now the normal saline that was previous A has been lettered B because the modules, as you attach them, will always letter left to right, A, B, C, D. So now we're going to reach out to channel A and select that channel and go into our Guardrails drugs. And this again is a customized library your pharmacy will put together with the drugs that you use currently in your formulary. We're looking for heparin, so we're going to use shortcut keys and go F through J. So we can now choose H, and by hitting H, all the H drugs come to the forefront, and there's our heparin at the very top. So we would choose from the left, and now you have a choice. Is this weight-based or non-weight-based? We'll go ahead and use the weight-based in this scenario, and we say yes, that's what we want. That's our concentration we want. And we had previously programmed a weight of 55 kilos in there. If that's not the weight that you use, go ahead and highlight patient weight. And let's change that to 85. And then press next. And now for every other weight-based drug you start on this patient, it will remember that weight. So let's put in our volume. Let's just put in a volume of 250. And then we can press start. Just like the normal saline, you have the green light at the top of the module, the rate in big green letters and scrolling across the marquee, the name of the drug and the dose. So now the physician has ordered a bolus of heparin to the patient. So we'll reach out to channel A, select the channel, and then notice the prompts corresponding with the arrows below. There's a bolus feature. If the drug has been set up in the library to be bolus by pharmacy, then that prompt will be available to you to use. So let's go ahead and choose bolus. And then we want to give this over 5 minutes, or you could do the rapid bolus, whichever one, the fastest, safest rate pharmacy says. Let's go ahead and do the rapid. And pharmacy says the fastest, safest rate is over 8 minutes. So let's press start. And now we're giving the patient the heparin bolus. And let's say for some reason you needed to stop the bolus, that there was some kind of condition that warranted you stopping it. So let's go ahead and press channel select. And at the bottom, there's a key that says stop bolus. So let's go ahead and stop it. And then press yes, we want to stop it. Had the infusion continued over the 8 minutes, it would automatically flip back to that base rate that we programmed when we first set up the heparin drip. So now we're going to show you some options on both the PC unit, the point of care unit, and the large volume pump module. So the PCU also has options, as previously mentioned. So you press the options button, and you will see multiple entries here. For instance, display contrast if you wanted to lighten or darken the screen, if you were to use a patient ID, clinician ID, or if you wanted to power all your channels down, let's say you had 4 running. Anesthesia mode, which is something that can be configured for anesthesia. And we can page down to see what other items are available, battery runtime, the configurations for the system, serial number, software version, and time of day. So let's just exit out of there. And notice while we're looking at this, we're not interrupting any of the infusions going on module A or B. So let's look at some of the pump module options, and you get to that by selecting a pump module and then hitting options. And here are some of the options you have on the pump module. And notice if they're grayed out, then these were not set up in the configurations to be utilized. So right now, you do have the options of what the pressure limit is at. So if you highlight pressure limit, it's telling you that the pressure limit is in a selectable mode, which means that you can move this up or down in 50 millimeters of mercury increments. If you press pump, that will switch it into pump mode. If you'll go ahead and press pump, and what that does, and go ahead and press start, is having this in pump mode, it will give you a quicker time to alarm for any of your flow rates that are less than 30 mLs an hour. So if you look on the PCU on the screen, under A and B, you'll see what we call a dynamic pressure display bar. And the display bar has tick marks. And the tick marks on B Notice that tick mark, that's at 525 millimeters of mercury, which is the downstream occlusion threshold limit. But notice on A, because we put it in pump mode and that's running at less than 30 mLs an hour, the tick mark shifted to the left. So you're going to have a quicker time to alarm. Having the quicker time to alarm can help reduce some of the occlusions that you may get with the patient's IV. A few other features you'll notice on the PCU at the bottom of the screen. They're always present when the device is in the running mode. Volume infused and audio adjust. So let's look at volume infused. This is where you would get your volume totals for your shift, depending on how many channels you have. It could be A, B, C, or D. In this case, it's A and B. You write down the volume and then you press clear all. That way, the nurse coming on the next shift can look at this and know the date and time it was last cleared. So just go back to your main screen, and now you're starting over with the fresh set of data for the next shift. Then let's look at audio adjust. This is in increments of 1 through 5, 1 being the softest, 5 being the loudest. You can have these customized by profile, depending on where you guys want to set these. But softer is 1, and then if you hit the louder button all the way up to 5, which is the max, you can test it on the top right, and you can hear how loud that is. So depending on where you're working, you can customize these to default to either 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, and then you can just return back to the main screen. Now I'm going to show you how to discontinue a module. Let's say the heparin has been DC'd, and we no longer need the heparin. So all you do is reach out to channel A, press and hold channel off till you hear a beep, let go, and now you've just only powered down the heparin. That module now can be taken off by depressing the blue button on the bottom right of the PCU, lifting it off, cleaning it, and then giving it to another clinician who may need another module. So that's the flexibility and usability of having modules that attach and reattach. Now let's say I want to go ahead, my patient's been discharged, I just want to go ahead and turn it off. So now you'll reach out to channel A, notice it's A now because we removed A before it, letters left to right, press and hold channel off, and we have now discontinued the pump. This concludes our demonstration. Thank you very much.